Hello and welcome to the Board Game Barbecue podcast. This is episode 277, brought to you by Advent Games and our Patreons. Today we have the host, which is me, Dana Banana, and I'm lucky enough to have some of my two favourite members of the Board Game Barbecue cast. So first of all, we have Def. Hi, Def.
Hello.
And then we have Jules. Hello, Jules.
Hello. Thank you for that great introduction, although I can't help feel you put us in a particular order, but that's okay.
Well, it was just, that's how it was written down. There's no favourites.
Fair. Alphabetical order. There we go.
Yeah.
There's a good reason for that, Jules. There's more of me than there is of you, so... Although you've been trying lately, you've been trying.
I was just thrilled that Mitch isn't on the podcast.
Well, there is that. There is that.
So you guys are my favourites.
Fantastic. I'll take it.
I have had a bit of a hiatus from the podcast. I've been on holidays to Asia and I was away for a month and I literally did not play a single board game. Nothing.
Push the button, Jules.
Eject. Where's the eject button?
I went with family. No one plays games and everything has to be sort of directed towards my 82-year-old mother and what she's capable of.
Yes.
And that's probably old maid, that sort of level. So we chose just to drink and do other things instead.
Well, from the photos, it looked like a fantastic time.
It was. We went to Vietnam, Cambodia and Bali, and that was our first journey into Asia. Unfortunately, I did spend 3 days in a Cambodian hospital, which
yes, I did see that.
Felt like something like a communist prison or something.
Wow.
I was desperate to get out of there. And when I did leave, that following evening, we were still in Cambodia. I lied about when we were leaving because I wanted the doctor to let me out.
Oh.
And I was really feeling unwell again. And I remember my mum saying, I think you have to go back to the hospital. And I burst into tears. And I said, please don't make me go back there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God.
So that's what it was like.
That's even worse than Jules having to play that game.
We won't mention that.
Dwellings of Elderberg.
Oh, gosh. Oh, dear.
But look, I'm so glad to be back and be playing games again, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what you guys have been playing. I know that, Def, you had your brother with you over the Christmas period, so it must have been a game marathon or game fest for you.
It has been, yeah. That's a good way of describing it. I was just looking at some of the numbers, and they're a bit unreal. Even for me, that I do go through some months of a bit of excessive gaming, and that was a lot, even by those standards. So, yeah, he was here for a month, and yeah, we had a good time. We played lots of games. We played games on 31 out of 32 days that he was here. And
my God.
I was looking at the numbers are crazy. We've played 67 games, out of which there was 46 different games, played 65 times. And we're talking huge games. And most of these games he learned here, like he already knew, Barrage and Brass Birmingham and Guy Project. And just looking at the list, I think that's about it. And then every other game he learned here, which was pretty magnificent effort. It was, I think I mentioned it in the previous episode, it was interesting to see him sort of soak up the new game so easily, because I have this image of, well, he's new to the hobby, he's only been here playing games for a year or so, and he doesn't even play that many games on his own because he doesn't have board gamer friends. I told him that's the wrong kind of friends to have, but
you're not wrong.
But he has a video game background, and he learned all these games very quickly. So it's been interesting to go through that with him. It was great to have him around and just have him explore some of these games that I love and explore some new games together. I think the most important bit for me, though, and I'll sit on this for a minute, is I got a pretty massive reaction from him regarding the people that he met here. So one of the things I wanted to do was to, not so much the games themselves, but to introduce him to some of the people that I have close to me here that we play on a regular basis. And the reason for that was it's the only way to create an additional connection with somebody that lives so far away. If they've seen what a typical weeknight for you could be, or what your friends are like, or what you do as part of your routine, or as part of your weekly gaming, maybe in my case, I thought that'd be better for him to connect with that and be able to maintain a more, close communication in the coming months or years. And yeah, he was legit very impressed. He met all the people that I play with regularly, and he was super impressed by how friendly everybody was and how welcoming they were to get him into the group and play games with him and all of that. And I think that's probably the highlight of his trip. He did mention that leaving, so that says a lot for me. And also, it matters a lot more than how many games or which games we played together. But yeah, lots and lots of gaming. I'm sure we'll get to talk about some of these things.
Can I ask, does he speak English?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, he does. I was thinking how that must be really hard if you've got a group of people that don't speak Greek and he doesn't speak English, but he obviously speaks very good English.
Yeah, most people in Greece speak English, especially people that are of our generation, I suppose, or a bit younger. And he has a job that deals with the European Commission anyway, work projects and stuff like that. So all the communication's been done in English. So his English is fluent. He may not be 100% comfortable with it. And in fact, he told me that he was quite concerned about going to these game days and game nights with me. So before he came in for the first time, he actually didn't want to go. He was concerned that who are these people and I don't know them, and how is the whole group dynamic going to be, and I'm not going to understand the jokes, and so that's quite a turnaround going from that to saying that this was his favorite part of the trip. So yeah, it was lovely.
What was the highlight game out of that period of time, because he was there for a month? Can you think of a highlight?
He gave me 3 because I asked him, and he gave me 3 games which are actually the games we played the most. So that was Voidfall, Nucleum, and Age of Steam, which completely caught him by surprise. The other 2, he was kind of expecting them because, he had seen roughly what they are, and he was, interested in the theme. Age of Steam, I'd spoken to him about it, but he thought, it looked too dry, too uninteresting. He couldn't get how this becomes a fun experience. And
that's a fair first look assessment when you look at the board.
Sure. Yeah. And so he was completely blown away by Age of Steam, and especially playing with my group, that everybody knows the game. And so it's all about, having fun and the interaction in the game. So these are the 3 games that he said were his favorites. But that was 2 days before he left.
Oh, have things changed?
Well, I don't know, because 2 days before he left, we know we're not going to have a huge amount of time to learn the new big game. We still played Nucleum at the last possible moment before he went to the airport. But I said, is there any big games that, you would like to learn? And he goes, well, you did mention Cloudspire.
Oh, and that's a big one.
Sure. If you want your brain to melt, we can do that. We had already played Too Many Bones, and he really enjoyed it. I told him Cloudspire is a completely different beast. So I told him Cloudspire, and he was completely blown away by it. Like, he thought it was... Yeah, first of all, he thought it was much, much better than Too Many Bones, a lot more fun.
Ah, my man, yes.
Mind you, this is the first time I played it non-solo, so I played against a live opponent.
Oh, okay.
So it was relatively balanced. I mean, I still knew the game a lot better than he
Yeah.
did, but it wasn't, some kind of chess-type landslide situation. So that helped. But yeah, I don't know what it was. He caught the rules and the whole flow of the game very, very quickly. And yet he still struggled a lot when I taught him Kanban. So it could be, Jules, you mentioned it before when we were chatting, it could be his video game background that
Sounds like it.
helped with Cloudspire. But yeah, so Cloudspire, he said, was, a huge surprise. And I'll ask him, I'll let a few weeks pass and ask him what he thought of the game compared to all the others. But, those 4 games are, pretty massive and well-loved games among our team and our community. So I'm not surprised that he loved them. We had a couple of negative surprises on the other end. Like I said, he did not. I don't think he enjoyed Kanban as much. He loved On Mars. Yeah, I think if he had to pick one, I think he said he would pick Voidfall. So yeah, there you go.
Sounds like a great month was had, a memorable one anyway. Did you even leave the house other than for the barbecue day?
Occasionally. I mean, the weather didn't help or helped, depending on
there was a lot of storms.
Your point of view. Like, we had things planned and, some of these thunderstorms completely changed these plans or completely cancelled them. But we went up the coast, and we also, sunny coast for a couple of days. We took him to see the Gold Coast as well. We did a couple of daily trips with the car and things like that. But also we had some stuff planned, go up Tambourine Mountain and things like that just didn't happen because of the thunderstorms. Everything was blocked. Everything was closed as well. Roads were blocked. So yeah, depending on your point of view, that wasn't very helpful, or it was.
Yes.
So lots and lots of games, and it was great to manage to get a game of Root with the kids as well on his last day, on second to last day.
That's great.
Even though Penny, my youngest one, abandoned the game at some point. She just got tired of it. She's figured out the Vagabond so well that it's no fun playing against her. Like, she is so aggressive, and like, we just can't figure out a way to stop her.
Oh.
And so she was in front. And at some point, she goes, I don't want to play anymore. I'm just going to go.
You guys are really dull. Yeah.
Something like that, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, dear.
Well, it sounds great. What about you, Jules? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've gotten to play a few games since I was last on the podcast.
Gremlins?
No. I got to play Too Many Cooks for the first time. I don't know if either of you played Too Many Cooks.
I thought that was a joke there for a minute.
No.
I have. I've played the new version, which is the Foodie Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know whether it's the same. But
I don't
have
know. But Too Many Cooks is published by Good Games Publishing, and it was just one of the titles I hadn't gotten to that they publish yet. And I thought it was actually quite clever. It was really fun. Basically, all you're doing is you set out a grid of vegetables and you're making a soup together, and every player gets 2 cards of conditions they have to meet, and there's also a public one that everyone has to meet. And so you can replace the cards in the soup with ones from the supply, but you can only do a couple of things. You can either swap out same vegetable for same vegetable, but it has a different color back, or you can swatch the same color back for a different vegetable. So I could do a tomato on an orange background and swap it for a eggplant on an orange background. So you're swapping something that's the same type. You can also shift the cards. So it's a grid of, I think it was 4x4, if I'm remembering correctly. And so you can grab one from the top of a row, put it at the bottom, and everything shuffles up or goes sideways. And so it'll have things like you can have no more than 3 tomatoes in the whole soup, or no 2 colors of the same type touching each other in the soup. Things like that. Really, really simple rules. But when you add up that every player's got 2 of them in a 3-player game, plus a public one, they all start to overlap and you start to have not contradicting rules. There's always a way to win it, but just enough of a rub that when you push something, someone else goes, "Oh, no, you've undone, I don't like that." Because that's one of the other keys to the game. You can't communicate directly what the other person has done to upset you and make the soup disgusting to you. You can just say, "I didn't like that."
Yep,
What have you done? Are you crazy? It was good fun. And playing on the harder difficulties really made it challenging. So that was unexpected fun. I quite enjoyed that as a light, quick card game.
That's a little bit different to Foodie Forest, which is sort of like a trick-taking game. So
okay, yeah, totally different.
That's a different thing. Yeah, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I also got to play Freedom, the Underground Railroad, for the first time. So,
yes, how was that?
Yeah, so Mitch taught that to me, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very simple cooperative game, but everything Mitch has said about that is absolutely spot on. So, for those who haven't heard about Mitch talk about this in the past, I suggest you go back and listen to an episode where he sizzled it, because it does deal with sensitive material. It's, you're trying to help the slaves escape from the South during the Revolutionary period and escape to Canada. And so you're raising funds and trying to help these slaves take different routes through the Americas to escape. And, mechanically, it kind of feels like a game of Pandemic in a way. It's a very simple cooperative game, but it's so cleverly done. I remember we were a couple of rounds into the game and we hadn't had any slaves get captured. We were doing really well. But the game is just so cleverly designed where you kind of have this penny drop moment when you go, we can't save them all. It's just not possible. And so now your brain switches into having to make decisions about, well, we could send this slave over here, and that's going to pull these slave catchers from these two cities, which will then actually kind of produce an opportunity for these other group of slaves to slip past. Really tense decision making, and you start to feel the weight and the gravity of the subject matter you're playing in such a simple game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We didn't win. We came very, very close, and it's just a brilliant design. I would happily play that again. Really, really well done.
Jules, does the theme of this game impact your appreciation and enjoyment of it? Because I've found in the past that with games that have similar, heavy, difficult settings, I find that I appreciate the design and what they're overall trying to do, but I end up moving them on. And I've got a couple of examples. One was Frostpunk. The other one was This War of Mine.
Yes.
Because, the setting becomes like really, especially with This War of Mine, and I think that's a universal kind of thing about this game. The game is brilliant, but, it's all about how you trying to save this group of people to survive in this war zone from hunger. Occasionally somebody will kill himself because he can't take it. And, it's very, very difficult. And so I'm finding that actually has an impact on the appreciation and then the enjoyment of the game itself. But it sounds like Freedom is a bit more abstracted, perhaps, and that helps a lot with that.
Yep, I think you're absolutely spot on there. It is a bit more abstractive. The people you're moving around are just cubes. They're not meeples. There's no names attached to them. So it's a little. You have a few steps away from that personality that could have been inserted. For example, games like Undaunted, right? How all the cards have names, and some of them are real people, but some of them historical as well. So they did enough, I felt, to make you sensitive enough to the game subject, but not so sensitive that you're like, I can't play this. It's too intense.
Well, that's good to hear.
I thought they struck a good balance.
Is it the kind of game where afterwards, when you played it, because of the content and the theme, because you were talking about, I guess, when you're saving one group of people, you're using another one as bait to do it. Did you find that you sort of went back and maybe did a little bit of research and educated yourself, or you found that you wanted to read about it a little bit more to see what it was really like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't gone back and done any research per se, but I know I've had conversations in the past with my mother in particular. She is American, so I have American heritage, and I do remember conversations with her about some family history and having people that helped those slaves escape from the South. And I did actually end up having a conversation with her after that game about that, and she started telling me some stories. So no research per se, but a conversation followed about, hey, what were those ancestors again? Where were they from? What did they do? That's what occurred after the game for me. And yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I think I almost want to get a copy for myself, even though it's not a heavy, complex game, which is something I lean more towards. Just because I know I have some family history connections there, I feel like I want to own that game now. It's quite interesting. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Freedom, the Underground Railroad. Really, really liked it.
Sounds great.
Some other games for since I've played since the last time. I got to play Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest again. Really enjoyed that. That was good fun. It's been ages since I've played it. Really, really fun re-implementation of the old Libertalia.
Yeah.
And I'll mention as well, I got to play a game called Mythwind. So this was sent to us by the publisher Open Owl Studios as a review copy, and I have played one session of it. So it's too early for me to make comments on it yet, but it's been interesting. I'll save all my thoughts for another time, but it's a very interesting game. I'll leave this hanging that it's a cooperative game. Yeah, there's no combat in it, and it has a story, but the game has no ending. You can just play it forever, which is something I've never heard of in board games before. So I'm going to see where this road goes. But
it doesn't have an ending.
It does not have an ending.
Well, I can think of one other game that does this.
Oh, what is it?
Oath.
Oh, of course, yes. No, that's a good point. Good point.
But that's it. There's no one. That's it.
Okay, interesting. I'm gonna have to. I need to play Oath again. It's been so long since I've played it.
I have a very interesting story about this, but maybe we discuss it another time. But basically, I started playing Oath just by myself.
Oh,
but in order to use what unfolds in the game as a story writing, a book writing exercise.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
So the denizens are characters, and
that's very cool. All right, cool. I'd love to have that conversation another time. One more before we get to Sizzling games that I got to play for the first time was Coloma. Have you guys played Coloma?
I have not.
I have, and I just don't like it.
Oh, okay.
Adrian, this was very early on in the when I first found out about the board game barbecue and all that, and I got invited by Adrian to play it. And I did not have a good experience with it, not because of Adrian, but because I'm just not good at simultaneously selecting actions. And then if you select the wrong one, you're penalised. That's just not good for me.
Okay. So. Well, as you all heard Dana just say, it's a simultaneous action selection game. And what's really clever about it is if two or more, if you choose an action where the most amount of people went, basically you'll only get the main action and you don't get a bonus action. It will get covered up. And it's got this clever rondelle where the wheel's always moving around and covering up one of the actions. And it's a simple sort of collecting resources, trying to get an engine going. There's points you can score from lots of different things you're doing. It just felt like a very smooth Euro, and I quite enjoyed it. I had one concern when I first started playing it. In the first round, I think I spent all my money, and I was like, uh-oh. I kept going to Mitch, where do we get more money? I need to earn some more money here. I'm in trouble. And I thought I dug myself into this massive hole, and I was like, the game's over for me. I've lost. But that didn't turn out the case. I ended up winning the game. But it was just funny for me to have that moment where I thought I'd absolutely ruined myself from the action I took at the start of the game. But I ended up having a good time at that. I would play Coloma again for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's I think there's an expansion that just finished on Kickstarter recently, I think.
I believe so, yes.
Because it's pretty hard to get. It's pretty hard to get.
Oh, okay. But yeah, loved it. I can't fault anything in the game. It felt very smooth to me.
Well, in the last 4 days that I have been in town, I have managed to play a couple of games or a few games.
Nice.
Just squeeze them in. And the first one I got to play, which I have not played for ages, not since probably the first time I played it when it first was delivered from Kickstarter, is Terraforming Mars Ari's Expedition.
Ah, yes.
But I got to play it this time with we just added the Discovery expansion part of it. I don't know if either of you have played it before or if you like Terraforming Mars. I do like Terraforming Mars.
I've played it, yep.
And people have a go at me because of the artwork and that because it's AI generated and all those things. And I know the components are poor quality and there's so much better out there, but I still love it.
We need Connor on this.
Yeah.
I'll jump in for his position and say all those things, but I haven't played Ares Expedition, but I'm not a big fan of Terraforming Mars. To be fair, it's been a while since I've played it. In fact, a few years. Maybe I need to try it again, but I was like, it's fine.
Yeah, I understand there's a lot more selection out there now, but I don't know. I just have a bit of a soft spot for it, and I've got all the 3D tiles and
nice.
and this and that, so I really enjoy it. But anyway, it's very hard to get to the table because often I'm playing with, say, 4 or 5. It's a super long game at 4 or 5. I mean, you're waiting such a long time in between turns, and so Ari's Expedition fixes that part of it. So I played a 4-player game of it yesterday with the Discovery expansion. So for those of you who don't know about Ari's Expedition, it's basically Terraforming Mars, but it adds simultaneous play into it, which I just really love simultaneous play now. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and crabby.
But not in Coloma.
Well, I was 3 years younger then, but
fair enough.
But I just get frustrated waiting for long periods of time in between turns. It just really affects my enjoyment of the game. So in Terraforming Mars, you have 5 phase cards, and you blindly select a phase card, and then everybody gets to, when you reveal them, everybody gets to do those actions. Except if you chose the action, you just get an additional benefit when you do it.
It's the Race of the Galaxy system, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's really clever, but I thought it was a bit lacking when I first played it. So we added the Discovery expansion this time, and I think it does make it better, and it's very easy to add. So what you're doing is it adds different awards and milestones, which are a little bit more achievable, and you can rotate those through to make the game a little bit different because they're a little bit bland in the base game of Terraforming Mars. It's the same sort of thing all the time. You've also got these, which is my favorite thing, these upgraded phase cards. So there are project cards in the deck which will allow you to, say, upgrade your development card, and everybody gets a deck of upgraded cards, and you'll have 2 choices for the development card, and it will make the development card even stronger than the original. And it really makes it just so much more interesting, but it also kickstarts the game a little bit, so you're not hanging on, because when you're starting Terraforming Mars and there's 0 production in all your fields, say, it can be a bit slow sort of getting going. It takes a little bit of time. So this sort of helps with that. It just sort of helps get it going. And during the game, I never really felt like I was behind, or like I was desperately behind, which is often the case in Terraforming Mars. It's probably because I'm useless at it. But anyway, I feel it's a pretty even race. I've really enjoyed that game, and as I said, it's so easy to get to the table, and it's a lot. I think it's very easy to teach. And there's another thing as well, that you can get wild tags, because that can be a problem in Terraforming Mars. You can't get the right tags. You're constantly drawing cards to try and get these tags that you can't get. So it introduces that, where you can add there are cards that will give you wild tags as well.
Don't you like Arc Nova, Dana?
I love Arc Nova. And
Interesting to hear criticism about the tags in Terraforming Mars.
Well, I do enjoy Terraforming Mars. Yes, that is an issue with it, but it's been fixed in Arc Nova now.
Oh, it's been fixed, has it?
It's better. It's not fixed. Okay, it's not fixed, but it's better. It's better.
I'm just teasing you.
It's better with the Marine Worlds expansion. So anyway, I highly recommend that. It's great.
Yeah, very good.
The other game that I continue to play, and I think this is it's so funny with you two, because if I could name my number one game of 2023, it would be Forest Shuffle. And you guys are talking about Voidfall.
I still need to play Forest Shuffle, and I keep hearing people say, Jules, you actually need to try it. I think you'd like it.
Yeah. It's it's really great. And this game, you need to play it often to enjoy it. You have to know the combinations with the cards. You're at a disadvantage if you don't. So it's something that you would just play every weekend or something like that. And I just really enjoy this. And I think there's already an expansion coming out, which of course I'll probably get. But anyway, you must play it. It's very, very good. And that's that.
Cool.
Okay, so we are on to our sizzles.
If you're looking for a new board game, you need to check out adventgames.com.au. They have a great range of games, including pre-orders and hot new games. Anything you could be looking for will be there at Advent. Dean provides excellent customer service that is second to none, and is always keen to support the Australian board game community through events, game days, and even through sponsoring a podcast. So head over to adventgames.com.au today. That's adventgames.com.au.
Def, what have you got?
I was trying to find something to sizzle earlier, and I was talking to Jules, and Jules was giving me all these suggestions. I was like, nope, we've spoken about this. Nope, we've spoken about this. No, Jules, we've spoken about this 4 times. And getting into the recording, I thought I'd have a look at my top 10 or top 20 games and see how many of these I haven't sizzled. I was expecting this number to be 0.
Oh.
But it isn't.
Okay.
In fact, it's much higher than I thought it would be, because some of these games have been sizzled by other people, but not me.
Right, of course.
But this game, we haven't spoken in a couple of years, and we simply can't have that.
No.
So this is Pax Pamir, 2nd edition, which was published by Cole Worley's, I guess, publish company, Worley Geek Games.
Mm-hmm.
Cole and his brother Drew. And I've played it a lot more than when it was last sizzled on our podcast, which, like I said, is at least a couple of years ago. I'm assuming that would have been you, Jules.
Probably, yes.
And I just think that the more I play this game, the more I appreciate the brilliant simplicity in its design. Because the rules can be a bit opaque when you start explaining them to people, but as soon as, they're by no means complex like, other games that we've mentioned today, like Heavy Euros or anything like that. They just, you need to wrap your head around how the whole system operates. But for a game that is that small in terms of footprint, setup, rules explanation, rules overhead, in terms of, ambiguities, etc., there simply aren't any in Pax Pamir. I think it punches, it packs a huge punch with with the experience it gives you, especially if you have enough players. And even in low player counts, I've never had a bad game of this. I even taught it to my brother while he was here. It's just a 2-player game, and I thought, well, this is not the real experience you're going to get. And we still had a heaps amount of fun. The tension was still there. Sure, it's a bit of a zero-sum game, but it was just magnificent. And so, quick overview, Jules will help me here. Pax Pamir is a war game of sorts.
Yeah,
I want to call it, I would say, war political negotiation kind
tableau
of game.
building.
Tableau building game that takes place in Afghanistan in the early 19th century when Russia, the Soviet Union and the British were using it as a neutral theater for their sort of rivalries on the world stage. And there's 3 coalitions in the game: the British, the Afghans, and the Russians. These are not factions that the players own. These are factions that the players align themselves with. So at the start of the game, each player chooses one of the 3 coalitions to be loyal to. And it's very common for multiple players to be loyal to the same coalition. That's perfectly fine.
I'd love to add at this point big quotation marks around loyal.
Yes. Because during the game, these loyalties can and will change depending on what you think, where you think the game is going. But I don't know which game started, and this might be a question, I don't know if you know it, Jules. Which game started the Pax system with, the cards, the market of the cards, and the tableau building? Was it Pax Pamir?
I don't actually know.
Yeah. So this is a system that's used in many all the Pax games.
Yes.
And it's basically the central part of the game is this market of cards. You have a market of 12 cards, I think, in 2 rows. And one of the actions you can do in the game is you can buy a card in your hand, or you can play a card. And then you build this tableau in front of you, which is basically if you want to, go beyond the abstract nature of it, is your relationships with the political and military figures in that region. And you have these people and these places on your tableau, and they give you additional actions that you can take. The game has a double-sided sword, I guess, that hangs over everybody's head, where you have a map of Afghanistan with a few regions. I think there's only 7 regions or something.
Yeah.
Where you have pieces of these coalitions being there, either standing up, which represents armies, or lie down, which represents roads between the regions for the armies to move. These pieces, by the way, are some of the most beautiful board game components we've ever seen. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah.
These
they're beautiful resin. Yeah.
Heavy blocks, I would call them. They're like blocks. And the players manipulate them during the game, move them around, have them fight for them, enemies, coalitions, and things like that. But they also have a bunch of cylinders that sit on their player boards. And these cylinders come into play in 2 ways. One, they can go on the map, and in that case, they represent local tribes that you align yourself with and that you have control over. And the second thing is, though, they can also go on cards, either yours or your opponent's, and there they represent spies. And spies can do all sorts of things. They can hold enemies' cards hostages so they can't do their actions. They can assassinate enemy cards. They can do all sorts of things. But they also move around the table in a circular, people sitting, let's call it in a circular table. You can imagine the 4 or 5 tableaus of players. Spies move around in a continuous sequence between these cards. So the game has the connection between what's happening on the map and what's happening on the cards. But ultimately, the game winning mechanic is controlled by 4 dominance cards. When a dominance card comes out and somebody purchases it, then we do a dominance check, which means if one of the coalitions, the British, the Afghans, or the Russians, have at least 4 more presence on the map than both of the other coalitions, then they're declared dominant, and whoever has the most influence in that coalition gets the most points. Second best gets second most points, etc. And then the board is completely cleared of blocks because peace is temporarily restored in Afghanistan. However, in some cases, this isn't the case, and the coalitions do not have a clear advantage over. One coalition doesn't have a clear advantage, and in that case, the player that has the most cylinders in place, so spies or tribes, gets some of these points. I have to say, this is a mechanic that when I first played the game, I thought was a bit off. It's part of, I think, what makes the first couple of games of this a bit opaque, because you can't figure out, do I align myself with the winning coalition, but then the other players have more influence than me, or do I try to oppose this coalition and focus on winning points through my tribes and spies? But I do think that the game is perfectly balanced between all of these mechanics, and even has a way of ending the game quickly, soon, if somebody is too far ahead. So as soon as a player is 4 points ahead of the other players, it is game over.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is massive tension in terms of, what you are allowing other players to do. There are some ways that you can block people from getting access to cards. You can make the market more expensive by changing the favored political climate. All sorts of tricks that players can use to influence not only their position in the game, but also their main opponent's positions. And usually, in the past, I wasn't a massive fan of these kinds of games because as a Eurogamer initially, I'm very, very keen on doing my own thing in my corner. And
Don't touch my stuff.
Don't touch my stuff, being more efficient than everybody else or something like that. But I think this was the game that got me loving this, tension between players and mechanics that they're not exactly what you call aggression mechanics, but they tip the scale between players a little bit on one side or a little bit on the other side. And I think Pax Pamir does this probably best than any other game I've ever played.
Yeah,
in terms of shifting momentum of the game a little bit towards one way or another. There's no crushing defeats or you know what I mean? Like I don't think the game suffers from any of that. So I don't know what your experiences have been, Jules, but every time I've showed this game to new people, I've never received any negative comments. I always get, wow comments, especially from people that, are not expecting it, have not seen it coming. They don't know what it is, maybe some of them. And so, that validates, what my thoughts are a little bit, but also, helps me play it more.
Yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot more to add to that, but I will share a recent experience. So I played a game of this on Board Game Arena because it recently came out with an implementation.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And I was a little bit worried that it would lose some of the tension that you kind of have around the table with those shifting alliances. And there's a lot of wheeling and dealing. As you said, spies on cards can block people from taking actions, but you can bribe people to take the action, or people can let the bribes go. You can have a bit of negotiation there. So in this most recent game, I'll try and keep this short. It was a 4-player game. Actually, it might have even been 5. No, I think it was 4-player. And I started the game aligned as the Afghans, aligned to the Afghans, and there was another player also aligned to the Afghans. Pretty quickly, I got stabbed in the back, and they shift to the British, and the British won a dominance check, and a couple more dominance checks roll by, and we actually had a few victory checks with only the cylinders. So the board kept getting more and more and more pieces. And I was trying to find a moment to switch my allegiance to another faction because I was on the Afghans all on my own. I was outnumbered by everybody. And I just couldn't find an opportune market. There weren't the right cards coming out in the market. And so I shifted my strategy to just, all right, I have control of a few regions. I've got some double tax actions, which allows you to take money off the board when people pay for cards. And I just tried to starve them as much money as possible because it's a closed economy game.
Yeah.
And
that's a very good point to mention there. The closed economy is very important.
Yeah. And so I did a pretty good job most of the game of hoarding a lot of the money, enough for them to not be able to just go out and buy those dominance checks. And I got to the point where I had the Afghans had more pieces out than anyone, more than 4 of any other faction. And the last dominance check has come out. I think by this point, the others were at like 6, 7 points, and I was back at 2. I was way behind. The problem was that the current political climate was on military, which for those who haven't played the game, it doubles the cost of cards in the market, which is absolutely crushing. It makes everything super expensive. But I figured out I could win the game by buying the dominance check if I just do all of my tax actions except one player had a spy on my card, which means I'd have to bribe them to take the action. I'd be 1 coin short from buying this dominance card. And so what was really funny was in Board Game Arena for this particular implementation, it lets you do a whole bunch of stuff and it asks to confirm your turn. But it also gives you an undo button if you want to restart the actions you're trying to do. But it records all those undos. And so we had a little bit of messaging in the chat as the game was going on. And I said to this particular player, I said, hey, can you waive the bribe for me taking this action? I promise I won't take your coins. And they went and looked through the history of the chat and they said, and I should say, I also added, it's the least you could do from backstabbing me at the start of the game because this was the player that did that. And
oh boy.
They looked through the history of the chat and said, this feels a little bit like extortion because I'd taken a few actions stealing their coins. And they ended up waiving the bribe. I don't know if it was because of what I said or they thought, they're in last place. And because they did that, I got the 10 coins I needed to go and buy the dominance card, I got the dominance check because I was the only one aligned with the Afghans. And of course, one of the tasty things in that game is the last dominance check is double victory points. And then that made me win the game. And everyone just in the chat was like, well, that was unexpected. It was such a brilliant game. And I love that it has that rule of double points. It just means even if you're in last place, you still have a chance at winning it. It was just brilliant. I love the game to bits. It's one of my favorites in the top 10. Great game.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, sorry, Dana, is that it's a quick game. It doesn't take 5 hours to play.
No,
you can have a full 5-player game in 2 hours. Maybe it can go in 2.5, but it's not one of these games that drags out. It's very quick for the satisfaction it gives you.
I tell you, I am listening to this about all this backstabbing and whatnot. I don't think I could play this game. I'm telling you, you play with this with a bunch of women, they'll never speak to you again. Like women hold grudges forever.
Oh,
forever. And until the grave, they hold grudges. I couldn't play this game.
Is this your Twilight Imperium experience talking now?
Oh no,
Dana?
No, this is just life experience as a woman. I'm telling you, you could. I just couldn't. I just couldn't play this game. No. Look, even if my husband, let's say I played with my husband and he was a gamer, I could potentially smother him overnight if he did that to me.
I love the wheeling and dealing in games, and this Pax Pamir has it in spades. I love it.
Jules,
yes,
what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm going to sizzle a game that has been done in the past by Mike, and I've just had a chance to play it a couple of times in the past month or two. That's Tyrants of the Underdark. It's an older D&D themed game, but I've just really been enjoying it. And I want to highlight this to people, that I think it's a fantastic game and everyone should give it a go. So Tyrants of the Underdark is a very simple, classic deck builder game mixed with area control. One of my favorite mechanics. And one of the cool things about Tyrants in the Underdark is you start with the same deck like everyone else does. You've got some cards that will give you strength, which in this game you use to put out soldiers on the board or to kill opposing soldiers. And you also have cards that allow you to have income that buy things from a market. Very classic deck building. You draw 5 cards, you use them or don't use them, and discard anything you didn't, and then draw 5 more. What's really cool is Tyrants of the Underdark has a core set of cards you always use, but then it's got a bunch of themed decks. And you pick 2 of them and mash them together, and they have very different play styles, very different things these cards are doing, and some interesting combinations once you start to combine 2 different decks. I think it's got like 6 or 7 to choose from. I can't quite remember, but there's enough variety that you've got lots of replayability by combining 2 different decks together. And it has the classic deck building ramp up of, power, where you buy 1 card and that's infinitely more powerful than the starting cards. And then that card allows you to do something really powerful, and then you've got more income to buy another one, and suddenly your deck's just getting crazy. And what's really cool about Tyrants of the Underdark is the mechanic for thinning out your deck and refining it. They do it, I think it's called promoting or upgrading. I can't remember. It's one of those terms. Essentially, that removes it from your deck and you don't have it anymore. But every card you buy has a point value. And if you promote it, it will be removed from your deck, but it increases its point value. And you've got this tension of, wow, this card's so good. It's super powerful every turn I play it. But if I promote it, then I'm going to get even more points. So you've got this tension and decision of, do I cast this card out of my deck for more points, or do I keep using it over and over again? It's got lots of those fun tensions. And the area control element's really quite simple. You'll start in a location on the board, and you use these cards that have strength values to drop down these little tokens on these pathways that you spread out on the map. You're trying to gain control of these locations, which have victory points. If you have total control, meaning you're the only person that has pieces there filling all slots, you get bonus points for that. There's spies that you can put out on the board, which you don't have to have connected to the network of soldiers you've been putting out, which means you can start spreading from another location on the board. The spies also deny total control from players. It's got some very, as I said, fun elements to the game where you can really mess with other people, get in each other's face, lots of fighting, and it's just good fun. It doesn't take a long time as well. It's about an hour and a half or so. It's very easy to pick up, and I just think it's brilliant. I think it's so well done. I would just go, yep, Tyrants in the Underdark, no problem. Let's play it. Let's smash it out. It's just good fun. Really good, clean fun. So well
Looking
integrated.
at the pictures, Jules, it gives me those, old Dungeons and Dragons games vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's never a bad thing, given most of those games have pretty decent base. Like, they're pretty decent. But the deck building aspect sounds interesting, and I think for you that you've played most of the better area controlled games out there in the market. It's a vote of confidence, I guess, for the game that it has area control in it, and yet it's much more basic than potentially other games, but combined with this deck building aspect makes the game very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the element of the area control I enjoy about it, it's very simple. You're just trying to spread as much as you can on the map and control as many areas as you can. But there's just little things you can do, like you can cut someone off from getting to a place you can see they were trying to go to, and it's very costly to remove opponents' soldiers. So to deploy one, it only costs 1 strength, but to kill an opposing one costs 3 strength. It's quite the jump in resource cost to just remove a single one of them. And so you've really got to pick your battles of where you're going to invest those resources to take over. But you can do fun things like spread somewhere and then just drop one in a city that someone hadn't quite fully controlled yet. And so now that's something they've got to deal with at some point. Yeah, you're really getting in each other's way. And I love doing that. So yeah, Tyrants in the Underdark, fantastic area control deck building game, simple to learn, lots of replayability, and just really good fun. Really enjoyed it.
Very good.
Well, I had one very quick sizzle because we're running out of time, but I managed to get a copy of Silver and Gold Pyramids. So Silver and Gold is a Phil Walker Harding game, and it's a flip and write game where you're trying to complete maps by writing on these cards with dry erase markers, and you're trying to fill the map completely, and then you'll get the number of points on the map. And on top of that, there's little tokens or gold coins or other symbols that you can cross off to get additional points, and it's played over 4 rounds. Pyramids just changes it up a little bit. It's still a flip and write polyomino game with dry erase markers.
So is this an expansion or is this a new standalone?
No, it's a new game. No, it's a new game.
All right.
So it's actually, I don't believe it's in English at the moment. I bought the German version. Okay. And it's published by NSV. I can't even pronounce the name, but it's a German company. But you can print out the English rules. So that's who I've got. It was an Essen release.
I was going to say, I didn't know you spoke German.
No. Anyway, same sort of concept with the dry erase markers and you're crossing off polyomino shapes. But this time it's treasure maps. And instead of having to complete and cross off all the boxes on a map, you're actually trying to create a path from an entrance to treasure. And there are obstacles and other ways of getting points along the way. So you're actually not completing all the card, if ever, at all. And so, for example, on the map, there are like fire torches that will give you extra points. You can collect coins, but they're gems, but they're 2 different colours and they always go in pairs. So you're always trying to get a red one and a green one as a pair to get points. You get points for every 2 maps that you complete. And when I say complete, going from the entrance to the treasure.
Right. Yep.
And for each 2 of the same colour, you get points for that. And then each map that you complete is just a flat rate of 10 points per each one you complete. And it's really interesting because some of the shapes or some of the maps have like ghost faces on them. So they'll give you negative points, but there are potions that you can get that erase those negative points.
Okay,
so
cool.
This requires a lot more thought than what the previous one gave you.
Nice.
Plus, there was this really weird thing in the other one where to determine who got a particular bonus or who got to choose a new map first, you had to remember who the first player was to draw cards, and it was a real pain to keep track of.
Yeah.
Whereas now what they've done is they've numbered each map, and whoever has the lowest numbered map goes first. And it's very simple, and now we don't have to remember whose turn it is. So there are some really a lot more interesting decisions in this and a lot more ways to score points. And I just really enjoyed this. This is better than the original, and it would replace it.
Okay.
It would replace it for me.
So it's similar enough that you like, I don't need both.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't play the other one now. I would just play this one.
Yeah, nice.
So it's really great. So that's Silver and Gold Pyramids.
Very cool.
So we've got some events coming up. So the first one we need to mention is the Melbourne Game Day. So that's scheduled for the 9th of March at Preston City Hall. Tickets are not on sale yet, as far as I know.
I think they might be, actually.
Oh, I thought I had a look on Eventbrite and I couldn't see them, but maybe
Probably
they
are by now, the time this goes out.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, that's true. So just remember that date, the 9th of March at Preston City Hall, the Brisbane Game Day.
They're on sale, the tickets on Fernable, by the way. I just checked.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yes.
So the Brisbane Game Day. I am so excited about this. This is going to be such a good game day. I can feel it in my waters. I'm telling you. It's going to be really great. I'm so excited. And I haven't listened to the podcast while I've been away, so I'm not sure if you mentioned it, so I'm just going to mention stuff
We
anyway.
have, yes.
I'll mention it anyway.
Go for it.
That a lot of the barbecue members from interstate will be there. There's like convoys of people, of community members or Patreons coming up from Sydney, maybe Melbourne, but definitely Sydney as well. We're looking at getting 200 people, and it's going to be held on March 23rd at Royal on the Park, which is the old Park Royal, which is opposite the Botanical Gardens, if anybody's familiar with
nice
Brisbane.
Spot.
I almost lost my virginity in that hotel, but I didn't.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't see that coming.
Anyway, it was a bit cheap. It wasn't a good hotel back in the day, but it's probably improved now. But anyway, it's $8 to $10 parking nearby for the day. And I just think the atmosphere in this particular board game day is going to be fantastic. And I'd highly recommend, if you can go, please go. It's going to be fabulous. I'm really looking forward to it.
Even though that it's on the 23rd of March, I can tell you the tickets are about a third gone already.
Yeah.
So please don't wait. I know we say this every time.
Yeah.
Get your ticket now. Last Brisbane game day we had on New Year's Eve, we had a whole bunch of people say, oh, I didn't get a ticket. Like, they're on sale now. You've got time. Purchase it now, and we'll have a good time together.
It's going to be great. And, of course, PlayCon, which is probably the most exciting thing that's going to be happening in 2024. And so that's from the 12th to the 14th of July at Hurstville. I always say Hurtsville. Hurstville, isn't it? It's Hurstville.
There will be no hurting.
Yes, Hurstville.
Well, that depends if you play Dwellings, Jules, or not.
Hurstville in Sydney. And there's going to be lots of panels and trivia, a Jackbox night, scheduled teachers and demos. There's a shirt. There's a PlayCon shirt, which was designed by Ian O'Toole, which is great, that you can order. So if you're interested, just check out playcon.com. And, there are still tickets available for that as well. But it's going to be fabulous. I'm so excited. I'm really excited about it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited that we can keep saying now, it's this year. It's this year. We spent so much time planning last year that it felt kind of far away, but it is coming, and it's coming fast.
Yeah. So this week's question of the pod: describe a board game experience that has affected you emotionally. Now, this question I was thinking about, and you know what? Maybe I'm an unemotional person, but I couldn't think of anything except this was years ago. My husband was trying to teach me chess. Anyway, we played this game. It went for like 3 hours, this game of chess. It just went forever. And when I was younger, I was extremely competitive. I'm not so much anymore, but I was extremely competitive, particularly with my husband. And I don't know if you're familiar with chess, but sometimes it can end in a draw.
Yes.
There's no winner.
Yep.
And I had my husband on the ropes whole game. And it ended in a draw. He said, no, that's a draw. And I actually didn't know it was I was still learning, so I didn't understand the concept of a draw at this point of time. And I tell you what, I have never been so cranky in all my life. And you know what? I threw the chess pieces at him. I threw them at him.
Oh, you had a Monopoly moment.
Oh, my God. I was so mad. And when I think about it now, I'm quite embarrassed about it. But anyway, I was so emotionally drained from I don't know. I desperately wanted to win. This is so sad when I'm talking about it now. It's so sad, but I desperately wanted to win. I deserved to win, and not winning, I just couldn't help myself. I had to peg something at him, and I pegged these chess pieces at him. Anyway, it gets brought up every time on our anniversary. So that's the only emotional moment I can think of. But what about you guys?
You don't play chess on your anniversary.
We don't play chess anymore. Oh, God, that's terrible, isn't it?
Maybe I need to give you a little present, Dana. I've got a copy of Chess Plus sitting at home here. It's actually quite funny. You can play it as a normal chess game, but all the pieces are divided in half, and you can do fun things like you can combine the pieces together. So you can have like a rook and a bishop combined together, so it can do both types of moves.
Can you still end in a draw?
Probably, yes.
See, this is the problem.
Can you still throw the pieces at your opponent?
Oh, they're very throwable. Absolutely.
Okay, well, there you go.
That's what matters. It's like a test match, a cricket test match. You can play that game for 5 days and it ends up in a draw. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I thought we'd just read out the comments from the community. So, Jules.
Sure thing. So this one, Eliza Reese said, I went on a board game cruise in 2019 and I think I was a wee bit overexcited about the endless gaming that was going on. It was about 3 a.m. a couple of days in and we were playing a relentless game of Yggdrasil. Every monster move was killing us and I started crying. I think it was Josh Boast and Tina Hansen who graciously informed me that it was time I went to bed. Oh, that's fantastic.
I love that.
We've also got Karen that said, I don't know if this counts, but every time I play Scrabble with my best friend, I'm reminded of how we met and how lucky I am to have such an amazing friend. That's Dana.
Yes. We actually met in a hospital. We were both having procedures in a hospital and we met in recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it wasn't meeting playing chess. So.
I was going to say, do you throw the Scrabble pieces too?
No.
When they got that triple word score spot?
No.
All right. Another one here, Daryl Rose said, I never knew about solo gaming and learnt about it after I finished chemo and quit drinking. I was having a lot of PTSD attacks and had a big mental breakdown where I couldn't work and couldn't really leave my house. After a few days, I was able to very slowly set up and learn sword and sorcery. I played through the campaign very, very slowly and missing all sorts of rules, and I didn't really like the game very much, to be honest. Although I didn't know my game tastes yet, but it was such an accomplishment for me to make my way through it and get out of my head, even if just for a few moments at a time. I've been solo gaming off and on ever since. That's great.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
Such a good story.
That is really great.
I love these stories.
We hope you're doing better now, Daryl. And I'll read off one more. We've got Felicity Grace said, the finale of Pandemic Legacy Season 2 actually made me cry. We made some decisions in the finale which felt impactful and quite beautiful within the context of the story, leading to a very touching ending. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was also an emotional roller coaster. You get very attached to your characters and they feel like your friends you want to protect. These games have stayed in my mind over the years due to its emotional impact on me in a way no other game has come close to. Battlestar Galactica is also an emotional game with epic wins, huge losses, just like the TV show. It truly captures that flicker of hope within endless despair. But thank you for that answer. That was fantastic. I haven't played many Legacy games and that, Pandemic included, but I always hear people talking about the twists and the turns and the unexpected moments. So, yeah.
Def.
Yes, we have a couple of answers from Discord singled out here. One from Nez C, who says, I very much enjoy playing The Cost, and I think it's an excellent game. It is, however, a very intense experience. The mechanisms of the game are all very integrally tied to the theme, the asbestos industry, And players soon realize the economic advantage of forcing your workers to work, quote unquote, unsafely, meaning the company with the most money at the end of the game wins. This is overlaid by needing to balance the number of times you do this at particular regions, because eventually the demand for asbestos in regions with too many workers' deaths will be reduced. No more refined asbestos will be purchased and no more government subsidies paid to companies. The country has realized the cost of the industry. When this is overlaid by my own recollection of the lengthy and ugly fight to remove asbestos products in the Australian building industry long after it was known to be unsafe, I find it a very emotional experience playing the game. Intellectually, I understand how capitalism works, but the way the game illustrates the relationship between governments, powerful companies, and our tolerance for an acceptable, in quotes, number of worker deaths always leaves me breathless. That's a great response.
Yeah.
Great.
And Jules says, for me, Pursuit of Happiness gives me the greatest emotional connection because as a life simulator, I can actually identify with the same thing. For example, being alive. At the end of the game, you have this beautiful, bittersweet moment of the life being over, but being able to look back on your jobs, partners, experiences, and possessions. Lots of responses from the community on this one, and some of them were quite lengthy, as you could see, but some awesome descriptions. And I think, it illustrates how far this hobby can take you in terms of helping in different situations, as well as giving you meaningful experiences apart from just having fun. So it was awesome to read through all of these and try to pick out a few to read tonight. So
yeah, thanks to everyone for submitting those. And yeah, there's some very personal stories, but also Nez mentioned some tricky subject matter to deal with. It's, as I agree with Def, board gaming can take us all kinds of places, and it's pretty special.
I tell you, after listening to these responses, I feel quite pathetic about my chess pieces.
I'm never going to let that go now. So,
hey, look, your feelings are valid, Dana.
At the time, it was a very intense experience. Terrible. The new question of the pod is, do you have a favourite gaming playlist or music genre that enhances the gaming atmosphere?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do either of you play music during games?
I don't play music enough.
For me, it's a bit difficult to play the piano while I'm playing on Mars. I've tried doing them one night. It didn't go down very well.
I want to play more music when I play games, but it's one of those things I kind of just forget to do. I get so engrossed in the game.
Yeah, you get.
But as mentioned on the last episode, I got to play Alice is Missing. And that had a soundtrack that went with the game that you can just play in the background on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, that totally set the tone for the game. I would never recommend anyone playing that game without playing the soundtrack. Because it's so the composition of that music track is in tempo with when the game starts to drop these prompts at intense moments. And it just creates an amazing atmosphere. There's a game which has been mentioned in the past, Hell the Last Saga, which I don't know if I'll ever get it, but that is going to have a soundtrack with it, which I was very excited for as well. But I love music. I love music and board games. I just sometimes forget to play that music. And there's an app that has been mentioned from time to time, a web app called Mellow Dice, where you can search up the game. It doesn't have every game out there, but it has a very good selection. And people have just created these playlists of thematic music to the game. If it's a pirate one, there'll be, some Pirates of the Caribbean music or whatever. So, yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I'm like you. I don't do it enough. I should do it more. I just forget to put it on. But recently I played Distilled.
Oh,
and
yes.
There's some music soundtracks created on a website called Tabletop Audio.
Okay, don't know that one.
Yeah, and they have a few different, depending on what kind of spirit you're distilling. Like they have a Caribbean one and a
Gotcha.
like the old English pub, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're quite good as well, and it's mostly ambient sort of music. But to be honest, I even don't mind just general music, like just having some good 80s music on sometimes when I'm playing a game, just to, I don't know, like it's just something to listen to in between turns or whatever. So I don't even mind that, actually.
Recently, I had some of my friends over, played a couple of games, and I put on a playlist I usually listen to in the car or maybe when I play by myself, but this is only just like for Euros and stuff, not for thematic purposes. And this is a band called the Postmodern Jukebox.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it's this guy, Scott Bradley, and he makes all these covers of popular songs from all sorts of genres, but with a 90s, 20s swing / jazzy,
I know that one. Very clever
feeling. And they found these incredible singers to perform these songs, and these covers are like completely amazing. And the funny thing is I had this on just casually at my place when one of our game nights, and now everyone in the group is putting the same music because they're all hooked on it.
That's great.
So there you go.
I forgot about that Postmodern Jukebox. Very clever composition and
yes.
Yeah, very good.
But no, like you, Jules, most of the time, even if I have music on, I get too focused or too carried away by the game. I don't even pay attention to the music anymore. So
yeah,
most of the time it doesn't impact.
Here's a fun question. Adrian put up a post during the week about like, share your gaming experience as a GIF this past week. And I love the idea of distilling down something into a single, thing, a GIF or something like that. If I want to know from the community as well, this is not the question of the pod this week, but what song would describe each host of the podcast?
Oh, God.
I want to see what that would be.
Oh, my God.
It has to be a Greek song as well.
You could have told me that before I talked about my virginity.
Oh, dear.
Jeez. Anyway. Oh, God, I can only imagine what that's going to be. Anyway. Right. I'd just like to do a shout-out to our Patreons, Jason Stevens, Jean-Baptiste Nodet, I hope I pronounced that correctly, John Lowe, and Chris Densley. Thank you very much for your support. And if you want to support the podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue. And that way you can get access to exclusive podcast episodes that we record just for our Patreons. If you can't support, that's fine. You can also support the podcast without donating anything. You can go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a star rating. You can also get involved on the Board Game Barbecue community by joining our Facebook community, following us on Twitter, Instagram, or on YouTube. And all the links are in our show notes. You can also go and join the Discord community. And for those of you who haven't tried Discord, I encourage you to give it a try because I formerly wasn't a Discord user, but it's really wonderful for getting to know other gamers in the community.
Yeah, it's a great place. Great place to hang out.
So we're up to Swear an Oath, and this is where we see who's been doing the right thing and who hasn't been. Def.
Hey, why are you starting with me?
That felt targeted.
So my oath from the previous episode was more of a oath for the entire year. My oath was to play all of my coin games from GMT this year. I've had a good start because I've already taught my brother, and we played together the British way, which is the coin multi-pack, I guess GMT calls it, with 4 smaller coin games that all can connect together. They're only 2-player games. They take about 60 minutes to play. So they're very quick. They give you a rundown of the system. So I've already done that, but this oath is, quite brave. So we'll see how we go throughout the year, but I'm totally planning on fulfilling it. So we've made a start. As far as a new oath is concerned, this is where it gets a bit tricky, because just yesterday I got a delivery from from All Aboard Games, where Scott Peterson produces 5 or 6 18xx games every year, and I got 3 of those, one of which is 21 Moon, which I've played once on 18xx games with Tina and a couple of the people from her group, and that was absolutely brilliant. But my new oath is going to be to play 21 Moon on the table. I know Adrian's got a copy of it as well, so hopefully we can try and play it together. But either way, that will be my oath, to play 21 Moon on the table.
Very good.
Good luck.
I'm going to need it.
Jules.
Coin games and 18xx. Casual oaths for the weekend.
That's it. Yeah.
I don't expect anything less, Steph. All right. So my previous oath, I have not had... the opportunity hasn't come to pass yet to fulfill it, which was to
Jules, yes.
It's to enter a miniature into the Crimson Brush painting competition, which is this coming weekend. So I have purchased my entry ticket to submit a miniature, so I will bring that along and I'll submit it and my oath will be done. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all the amazing stuff that's there, so that's going to be good fun. However, for my new oath, I mentioned earlier in the podcast that I'd played Mythwind. Mm-hmm. So my oath is going to be to continue to dive into this campaign game. I want to explore what this game that has no ending, that's cooperative and no combat, which is so against the grain of every fiber of my being. I don't know if I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but the publisher, Open Hour Studios, have sent this to us. They reached out and offered it. And I said, this game is like literally the opposite of all of my tastes. I want to see how I react and what I think of a game that is so far outside my wheelhouse it's not even funny. It. So I'm embarking on this experiment. I had a pretty good time playing it the first time, but there's a lot more to unlock. There's secret envelopes you open. So I want to see what this has in store. So yeah, I'm going to continue playing Mythwind for my oath.
Well,
excellent.
Well, for me, I'm really having a shocker.
Well, you did have a month in Asia.
I had a month in Asia. I literally did, I think my last podcast or whatever. And then it wasn't long after that I went to Asia. So yes. I've had no time to do anything. So my previous oath was to play Evacuation.
Well,
so
you had a different type of evacuation in Asia, maybe? Yeah. Right. Okay, cool.
That's it. So I'm just going to have to add that to my current oath or the next oath. But I am doing something very different this year. 2024 is about expanding my horizons a little bit.
Okay.
But not enough to play Pax Pamir.
No.
Come on.
Well, we'll see. Anyway, I'm not joking. I am going to be playing games that normally wouldn't appeal to me, and that could include Pax Pamir. But I think I'm a bit narrow-minded when it comes to board games, and I hear about, like, especially when we did our top 10s, mm-hmm. and then the Patreons also did their top 10s. Just listening to these games that everybody was talking about, some of which I'd not heard of or not considered playing, I thought, I wonder if I'm just going, along the usual lines that I usually do, which is generally cute animals and that kind of fare,
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want to do something different this year. So I am going to start playing some different games. And my first one that I have chosen is a game called Weimar Republic.
Okay.
So-
What, the GMT game?
Yes. So this is something really, really different. I have
I'm very surprised.
anyway. I'm going to do it. I have a friend who has the copy and said, "Why don't we try and play it?" So we're going to do it.
Wait, the Weimar Republic is not out yet. Could this be a different game?
It's from. I'd have to. I don't know. Someone can look it up, but it's a 4-player game. Hang on.
Okay, so maybe it's the capstone game. There's 2 games with Weimar in their title. One is Weimar Republic, which is a GMT game that's not published yet. I think it's probably going to be published next year or at the end of this year. There's another game called Weimar: The Fight for Democracy.
That one. It's that one.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon.
Okay, so-
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
that
that's
one.
okay.
So anyway,
That's still pretty out there. That's like
it's way out there. This
Yep.
is so not me, but I'm going to give it a go. And I do want to just expand my experience with board games a little bit, just to
Love
see
it.
if I'm missing out on something. So there'll be more surprises. I have sort of taken note of some other people like Patreon's top 10s.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'd like to pick a game from somebody else's top 10
Yeah, very
to
cool.
try those games. So
yeah,
anyway, this one is the Weimar, the fight for democracy.
fantastic.
Cool.
Love it.
So that brings us to a close. Thank you for all your chatter about what you've been doing over the break, and I look forward to the next one.
That's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, see you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.